or no. So one of the fun challenges of streaming video, particularly, is title matching when you're doing collection comparisons. So we like had the Canopy offer in this last year. I know renewal is coming up on for Films on Demand. We've got academic video online that I'm trying to get us like an all-in deal, but they've also like offered very minimal discount. And you'd think, yes, I'll just do a title match comparison and I'll find out what the overlap is. And you certainly can. In fact, I do have the Canopy, the K-base title list in a format that I can run an overlap analysis against your collections with using Alma. But the problem is Films on Demand and Canopy and Academic Video on Demand like to title things completely differently. So some of them put a series title in the item title, some do not. Some list like a publisher as themselves, even though it's actually PBS. Um, it, there's so many crazy little differences. Um, so when um, when you're considering a video package, it can take a lot of time. And this is where I'm happy to step in and assist. Because basically my process has been if someone is interested in Avon or Canopy and they already have Films on Demand or Avon, I'll go ahead and I will run the overlap tool in Alma. And yes, if there are exact matches, they come back. And for example, if you run Avon against Films on Demand, you get over 3,000 matches, which out of, I think it's like 40,000 titles in academic video. Just kidding, like 80,000 titles in academic video. And I think like 30 in Films on Demand. You'd think, that is not a lot. You're absolutely right. It's not, but also a lot of things that match will not show up. So I'll share my screen with you just so you can kind of see how ridiculous it is. So I actually have usage stats here on the right from Olympic from the last year because Amy wanted to see what kind of coverage Avon could offer based on Films on Demand. I also have, and I'll bring it up, which one is it? Titles with overlap. Here is the actual titles with overlap report from Alma. And so we've got uh, those, 32,000 results. But here, for example, so we have this title, and I'm honestly choosing this just at random, but it's part of a series, The Latino Americans. It's got various subtitles for the episodes. And let's just see if it even came up in this. Um, so, oh, well, it helps if I don't have a bunch of other words already in the search. Yep, not there. Um, which is crazy. And if we do, let's say foreigners, well, spell it right. That usually helps. And on this, here it is. Um, so that one is one where luckily the title of the segment of the series came up, but the name of the series didn't. Uh, Gumbo, and that one I'm not sure if it comes up because the Ken Burns, yeah, Ken's Burns stuff doesn't come up, and yet it is there. Um, got- but how would you know that these are um, like, but yet they do have that documentary in Avon. So it's excruciating. I take, the full bib file from Avon. Um, I can do it against your Films on Demand activated collection in Alma. In this case, I had Amy send me the counter report for like her high use titles, because then we're focusing on the ones that someone might actually notice if they disappear. Um, but then sometimes I also have to spend so like this one just said Lewis and Clark, and I had to go into Films on Demand and find out which one it was because that's so painfully generic. And it was the National Geographic one, that's subtitled The Great Journey West. Um, and it is not in Avon, but Avon has the full Ken Burns Lewis and Clark one, which is like the journey of the something core, discovery of the anyway. Um, and Netflix has, so like I try to show like here are the other streaming options. Um, so PBS American Experience has a YouTube channel, and many of their documentaries are available there, for folks to watch for free. Um, and then in this case, this one isn't even on Films on Demand anymore. Like it must have gotten dropped in July. It hasn't had a viewing since then. And I searched and I searched and I can't even figure out what it is. Um, so if anyone has a clue. Um, but yeah, it's so crazy how difficult it is to do a title match with streaming videos, and it can be such a drain on time that you don't have. And I kind of get familiar with like, okay, this series keeps coming up, and it, like America Through Native Eyes. It's actually several these ethical issues in nursing, several videos in the same series, um, and so then I'm like, yep, it's there, it's there, it's there. But I've got like I'm searching in another college's catalog because they have Avon and Films on Demand. And so it helps me figure out what the Films on Demand title really is. Um, I'm searching in PBS. I'm searching in Alexander Street. I'm searching in YouTube. I also like get in and search, um, because sometimes I'll like find it and it'll say, "Oh, available also from, like Gale." And I'm like, "Is it though?" And so then I have to like sometimes I have to use Big Ben just because that's the catalog, that's the electronic content I have access to. Um, I try and search with Canopy as well. And then with Canopy, sometimes I have to log into my public library to see if it's requestable or if it was like hidden somewhere. Um, and sometimes I go straight to the like source, because this one I'm working on right now, this Howard Zinn, the People's Historian, is very frustrating because as near as I can tell, like it doesn't exist, which means Films on Demand like retitled it. So unless I go in and like watch it, which I can't do because I don't have access to Olympics content. Um, so it's just uh it is frustrating, but I'm happy to do those kinds of things for you. I probably spent a little bit too much time on this morning because I got my new computer to put together. But I was just kind of I got into a wormhole on it. So um, anyway, if anyone has any ideas or like strategies that have worked for you in doing collection comparison, especially of, like the more unusual content stuff, um, please throw it into chat, or speak up. We can share out a little bit. Um, or if you have something else that has come up with electronic resources that you would like to have the group troubleshoot with you, just jump in. Hi, Abby.
Hey, sorry I'm late. Sick kiddo craziness.
Yeah, and I was able to do like a preliminary films on demand versus K-base for Whatcom, but and if you're going to be participating in the sushi harvesting workshop on Wednesday, that can also help a lot because then I can pull your most used titles. In Olympics case, that isn't something that she's got integrated yet. So I had to ask her for usage. But if your sushi harvesting is active and you want me to do a title comparison, then um, yeah, that makes it a lot easier because then I can just run analytics and I actually like can, you know, if there is overlap with like Avon and Films on Demand. So like that's what happened to me at Whitworth. And I was like, okay, why is everyone going to the Films on Demand record instead of Avon? And it was just like a weird like display logic rules issue. Um, And when I was able to talk to our systems librarian and get it fixed, then when we canceled Films on Demand, I had a few people who were like, ah, but this is where I always went. And I was like, yes, just research it in the catalog and it will come up again. Uh, but Abby, did you have a question?
I don't. I kind of wanted to see what other people are doing. I'm not able to go. I'm doing a library carpentry workshop this week in the afternoons, learning like R and other stuff. I'm super excited. I can't do the sushi stuff. I think I jacked all my sushi stuff when I don't know what I was doing. I can't remember even now. My brain is kind of crazy. But so I hope you do it again because I would really love continual support in these types of analyses because I just don't have time. But getting things set up to get to that point. But yeah, I'm always kind of curious about Primo customizations. I'm not sure what conversations happen there, but I went to Developers Day, which was beyond me for the most part. But that's the thing I looked at. I'm like, well, these people are so smart. Like, what does their Primo look like? What are their users seeing? And I was like, for a lot of them. Um, and so I don't know if you've got anything, Carly, or if there is an agenda. I don't want to overtake just because I'm on video, but anything new you've learned or any ways that we can make this interface more usable, more accessible. I'm here for. Yeah. So muting again.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were in the meeting last week when we were talking about display logic rules. Yeah, so
I've totally
we
used that
talked,
already.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we talked about basically uh just streamlining the view it online links. So from, like 15 or 20 JSTOR ones or Gale ones to the one larger uh, JSTOR or Gale one. Um, but I think, a lot of times you can't even begin to, it's like, well, I don't even know if all my collections are activated correctly. So it's like there's that first step of, can we find what we're subscribing to in Primo? Um, and then it's really hard, unless you have a specific reason to go in and spend time and make, uh, you know, portfolios related. Um, like you're like, you know what? I know that this professor always wants his students to watch Ken Burns. And we do actually have them from both providers. I want to make sure students can find them. You could, like go in and make portfolios related. Um, but what, like, there's probably thousands like that, right? So like, why do it unless there's a reason to? Um, and
Would you be able
like,
to help with that audit at any point? I mean, I heard you kind of offering that a little bit for like a title analysis, but for interested libraries for larger packages, would you be able to be like, because I was there on like a call several weeks ago too about how you were doing this great analytics and like, do we have things? Do we have all the portfolios? Do we have things activated correctly? And um I tried to use the spreadsheet, I tried to use the stuff, and I think I screwed things up also, in addition to fixing things. Um, but I think that could be really valuable to cultivate. I don't know, it's just my opinion. And I know sometimes you get in that point where you're like reaching for projects, like what do people actually need? What would be helpful? I don't know. I mean, I find myself doing that. Like there's 101 things that I could do, but what is actually going to be really useful to people, that I don't know. But yeah, so anyway.
yeah, well, and I mean, I guess I can't emphasize this enough, and those of you who know me, don't need it emphasized, but I do love to work one-on-one because I I have my opinions about like what what you should a catalog should look like, and like what information should be in the brief records, or what facets should be available. But your students are your students, and like, so I'm more than happy to help create a search scope or test search scopes, or like test out new facets. And those are things that we can do kind of generally. I can say, hey, here's this thing, that I've recently learned that might be of use, and it may or may not apply to you in exactly the same way. Perfect example. So, um, a streaming video search scope, easy enough, right? Um, I was trying to put one together for Yakima, and for some reason, nothing is coming up. And I was like, what? And I was like, am I doing this wrong? And I found Linda has a great one at Lower Columbia, and it was working perfectly, and they have the same collection. So I'm like, these should be showing up. Um, and like, not everybody, maybe you're like, nope, like I don't want a streaming video search scope because I've made a streaming video, like I have the resource type facet on the facet side, and that seems redundant. But a lot of schools aren't using um, every single search facet available. Maybe like you don't have the database facet activated, and 98% of your streaming videos are from one provider. The resource type one is, like pretty much going to come back with that one database. Uh, but yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense. Like everybody's puzzle pieces are just a little bit different. And I want to respect that individuality and like the needs of your students and your different collections. Um, so I sometimes find it quite frustrating in these meetings because I'd love to give everybody a one size fits all tool or solution. Um, and I think more than anything, like, um, yeah, like go, just like setting up a series of meetings with me has been really helpful for folks because we end up finding different problems. Um, so like we've done it at Yakima where we discovered that like proxy information in libguides wasn't done correctly, but like it was halfway correct in Alma. But we only discovered that because they were swapping proxies from self-hosted to OCLC hosted. Um, and a lot of times, like you guys might only be alerted to something if there's a problem, and then do you have time to figure out if it's a systematic problem or just like a one-off problem? Um, so, and like what I learned from the what collections are active where is that there is a lot of variety in like how people have chosen to set up electronic resources
Or
in
how they've
Primo.
understood them to be activated. I just turned on a bunch of stuff because we went to Rialto this week and I activated thousands and thousands of portfolios, not realizing exactly what the implication was in the user environment. And so could just be lack of awareness or knowledge, you know?
Yeah, and it's tough too because the migration from Voyager or whatever the last ILS was went differently for everybody. And it may have not happened when you or even your library director were at your library. And then since then, there's been the migration from PCI to CDI, which it still confuses me. Um, and like I've was part of the process at Whitworth, and I have been to numerous sessions with Ex Libris on CDI and how it's working. But they put out new functionality, and so like maybe we had a workaround for something in the past, and now because of that new functionality, that workaround is not the best way to deal with whatever the issue was um, that you were trying to fix in the past. And you may not even know that that workaround exists because you didn't put it in place. Um, so I think the sushi workshop will be interesting because I am wondering. So even if you can't participate, the homework that I'm asking participants to do, I think is a really good exercise in generally understanding your e-resources. Like if you have an admin portal for a vendor of electronic content, you should like there's you should probably have something from them active in Alma. And if you don't, your users are probably missing out on a fair chunk of content that they need and could be useful. There are some things, obviously, that are not in CDI, but and they're not in the community zone. But like, the big five, the big six have have a lot of content there. Um, yeah, and I'm hoping that this first sushi workshop gives me a good idea of like where the tricky points are. And then probably schedule one again for January or February. February was like last year we did the vendor visits. And I felt like it was great because February has always felt like kind of a weird slow time, but you're reviewing you know, renewals, you're probably trying to make a budget. So doing sushi at that time and maybe making a push for really understanding usage of your materials, and sushi being a part of that. There's a whole sub kind of section of like ebook usage versus book usage, because um, if you've got ebook titles that you've purchased, um, they may not, like, and it's a, vendor direct from Bloomsbury or something like that. Getting that uh, counter usage, I mean, that could be a lot of work for one or two titles, but there are different ways that we can still collect that usage and then compare it. Um, so I think, like maybe this next February is a collection collection management. What are we using um month instead of vendor visits? I don't know. Um but yeah, one thing we analyzed ebook usage and book usage every year at Whitworth, and then the previous school year's use would be presented at the beginning of fall semester. And the last year I was there, I was quite frustrated because the way that the statistics were presented made it appear as if ebooks were insignificant. Um, it was like, oh, look, ebook usage only accounts for, 2% of, this, our general online usage, or, like only 3% of the titles that we have access to are even being looked at. And like, and it's like, yes, okay, that seems terrible, right? But we have access to what? We had access to 700,000 ebooks or something ridiculous. So 3% was thousands of books, and some of them were, like had multiple requests, which is actually clicking on the thing and, like reading a chapter. And then we looked at physical circ stats, and this was post-pandemic, so yes, lower, but like it had been trending downward before that. Um, and physical circ was lower than the ebook circ, but it was not presented in the same way. Instead, it was presented as, look how many books we checked out. And it's like, yes, but again, we have like 500 books on the shelf. And in order for those 2,800 books to get checked out, it involved a lot of man hours at different points in the process. And it did not equal the number of ebook checkouts. And I'm not sure, like, there is no way to qualitatively know how much of how much the user consumed of either book. Um, so yeah, um, yeah, I would, so I like to work with analytics, not just in an iPads make reports, but to try to get things to like a visualization that is as close to apples, or can start to frame new resource types or access types new, um, in ways that are more familiar for, like maybe library traditionalists. Um, so I think the sushi workshop, getting people like really set up with that, is a good first step to us all being able to know that we have accurate, you know, access to our electronic collections. Um, and then, you know, what's really getting used, because if every single school that has, a certain collection is using, the same 100 titles, um, and, like the other schools would probably benefit from those, but they don't have that package, we have a really good way to support, like, yep, these are available from this, and if we do that, anyway. Um,
No, I
so
think that this is great, and I think that we should do it over and over because, like, just like with me and like, I know, I know what you're talking about. I know during that hour I was following along. I was using the data afterwards, but then there was this like,
yeah, then you get 16 other
you know,
projects requests,
right?
meetings.
And
Yeah,
I think that's true for so many people. So, getting it down pat, especially when you're like doing the foundation stuff and like keep massaging us towards this like ultimate real. I mean, it's wonderful stuff. I definitely want to contribute. Yeah. So it's good. It's good to hear.
and we've got another couple retirements coming in the next 12 months. So, we will continue to have new librarians who, need to know how we're doing this work and where the resources are. So yeah, um, I'm excited to be coming into the second 12 months of working with you guys and getting to kind of revisit topics, get into a rhythm of, when it works for you guys uh, to look at stuff. And iPads is coming up quick again, as it does. Um, so I'll probably be, uh, yeah, I'll be looking at tomorrow is an analytics meeting, so we'll probably like review the um the iPad's like website and review the iPad's dashboard that already exists and see if, like anything needs to be swapped around. Um so yeah, Primo customization, go for it.
I feel like I'm talking just like this is just the Carly and Abby show. Apologies to all the participants. Tell me to shut up if you need to. I am talking about work stuff, but um so at the Aluna conference, I attended this session that I was not able to fully work through at the conference, and then I haven't had time, and so this was my placeholder for that time. I tend not to do a lot of customization on the CSS side because I suck at it, and also then it is a potential to break because I kind of suck, but also because things just change all the time. But I would really want to know if anybody here has customized their Primo to switch the send to and view online sections. Someone had done that, and I just loved it because the send to section of a full record in Primo, and this is not out of the box, it's not just a button, but it's like get a QR code or email it or print it. And I really just want the where they can get it links
Get
to
it
be much higher
before.
on the
Hmm.
page. Yeah, whether it be the call number for a physical title or the view online links, all of the send to stuff is kind of crap. I don't think, well, it's not crap. Some people work that way, other students don't. And so I need to lift up, especially people on mobile devices. So has anybody done that?
Do you know what institution, like, do you remember? Do you have the notes? I mean, I can always go back and look at the Aluna sessions, because that would be one that I do maybe have some skill enough to deal with.
Uh,
Um,
I don't know offhand. I didn't look them up, but I also had a sick kid, so I was running around. Um,
it's the view it, get it, and the send it
send
section.
it. I was in, who was I in that session with? Was it you, Naoko? Gosh, I was with someone and we're like, oh yeah, and do you have that code? I don't know that actually the session was about, oh, it was about the usability, which I have used that one. The usability testing, the person presenting didn't actually make the change. I think they were in Wisconsin. That's partly why I haven't followed up. I didn't have like um I didn't have like, show notes, whatever you call those things, like to like be like, this is what they did. Um, but I'm pretty sure it was that one. And I haven't reached out to their person either, but oh sorry, Naoko. I'm misremembering. I don't know. You were
Ab
there. I know you were there
Abby,
though.
I think it was me because I'm looking at my Luna notes.
Oh,
Day
maybe it was you.
1, 10:15 a.m. A spotlight on functionalities. They talked about share export options, including posting to social media. And then my notes kind of went nowhere. And then it says something about brief record display. Um, order is all I have written down here. So
Okay.
I can either share my notes with you. I think they were using University of Buffalo SUNY as a good example.
SUNY,
Um,
they have good documentation, so if they really did do something, we
yeah,
can probably find it.
Mm,
yeah, yeah. So that's all I got.
thank you.
Um, um, yeah, there's so much customization. Um, and sometimes I feel so like I think one of the most underutilized maybe tools for customization is the fact that you can have multiple Primo views. So if, like we've talked about having it for like a Spanish language or another language view, and the first step was getting that activated. But I really believe that getting like a really stripped down view for possibly non-English speakers or like extremely unfamiliar users with the library or like really basic information literacy stuff, or for your mobile platform where, like, no, it's not your default view, but you can put a link, like in your default view or on your website to, hey, like, does research overwhelm you? Try out our stripped down version. Um, Something like that. And
Yeah, that would be
that
great. We have a lot of English language learners. That would be really, really good.
Yeah, and like, and so that way you can play with how much is customizable, and then you can compare if you've got, Google Analytics working on your site, you can compare what people are doing. And if you don't have Google Analytics working on your site, I think we can also probably figure that out. Um, so, like it's, yeah, there's just so much. Yeah, Melinda, you kind of missed we had a whole like Spanish language like primo customization breakthrough over the summer when you were out. Okay. Linda has the slide 15. Uh let's see if it'll go to it, and it is going to it, and I can share screen.
I think I found the one that had sparked my interest, but I don't know if there are details in the one Linda shared for how to enable or how to configure the switch. Because it wasn't a button, it was definitely, from what I remember, CSS. But then I tried to update it and I totally broke it. Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Share export. Yeah, this is interesting because um you can get analytics on whether people are doing these actions. Um uh Favorite, direct linking. That's like a fairly new option in the last couple years. Like that's kind of one of those things that, like, maybe at the time when the option started, you didn't want to activate it because it wasn't working very well, because I'm pretty sure it was not working very well, but it's gotten quite a bit better. Um, mm, which slide was it? Did you say, Linda?
It was further up. It had the Facebook, Twitter logo on it.
Okay.
It was like halfway through the presentation.
18.
Abby, I think that's what you were talking about. I apologize. I got pulled away for a second and then I came back and I'm like, oh, I remember that session, I think. But yeah,
Yeah,
right
so
there.
they're talking about, this one is like um which of the share actions, send to actions are visible in the brief record tab. And Abby is potentially saw someone who had talked about taking that send to, for example, here I've got this one that happens to be up, taking the send to and moving it below the view online.
Yeah, I have like I have that presentation. They don't say how to do it, but I have their screenshot, so I know and their contact information too. I just have not reached out. But I think I totally appreciate you bringing that up, Linda. I had totally forgotten that presentation, but I think I was doing it live. I'm just like, oh, this is a good idea. And I just like did a bunch of stuff, but I'll have to go back and revisit it. So thanks.
And one of the things that is a pretty easy customization, since now we're just on this track, is to take a look at the analytics for what's getting used. And if stuff is not getting used, take it out. Like, leave in one of these, because basically if someone actually knows how to use it, they can figure out how to convert it to what it is they use. But like 9 times out of 10, if someone's even using send to, it's probably citation, and then maybe it's print, and then it's permalink or email. It's almost never these, because that's like PhD faculty, people who use research software. And I love my research software. What's the big one that everybody uses?
Zotero?
Yeah. Yeah, I have shared folders for the articles that I've published in my, like my big research project that I did in school with my professor. And I put stuff there when I'm helping faculty with their research so that I can share things and analyze it. But like, even I go to my Zotero infrequently. Um, so I don't think a lot of community college faculty or undergraduate researchers are like, oh yes, I need these file things, you know, like they want to cite uh or print. Um yeah, so tomorrow we do have that analytics meeting. So in addition to revisiting iPads, we might just take a minute and I can go through how to find out which of your share to send to options are getting used. We'll see if I'll see if there's any good out of the box ones that would be simple enough to put into our shared file so you could find them easier. And that way, if you're interested in kind of cleaning up that brief record display, you can at least start by getting rid of some of the share to options. And then I'll see if I can't find that Eluna session, because that might be a fairly advanced. If it involves CSS, it's probably in somewhere in the Primo customization package, and then you have to download the files and unzip them. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can definitely mess things up, which again is why having multiple Primo views, because you can duplicate your live, name it like testing date, then download that CSS and mess it up, and then you just delete it if it doesn't work later, which I have definitely done. Uh, so, sorry, I'm gonna stop share again. But yeah, it's Primo customization and electronic resource management is Venn diagram.
If you do end up finding like a good canned analytics and end up dropping it, are you able to share a link on the listserv? I tend to use my inbox as a to-do list sometimes. Always going for inbox zero. And sometimes the recordings are hard to get back to, especially finding just that one little piece when we might have
Mhm.
shared. If you think about it and are able to do that, I would love, or even just me, just to shoot me an email. That would be great.
Well, and I've been trying to, when I like send anything about analytics, I've been trying to do the folder path because I feel like the Oracle links, like they don't even work when we're trying to do the like the analytic objects list half the time. So yeah, generally if I do find something useful, I put it into the whack tick click um folder. And if you're interested in what I'm like playing around with and trying to make work, it's in Carly's tests. Uh, and then if something does work, I try and move it into an appropriate category. But if we can figure out like some cool primo ones, um, I would totally be willing to like put together like a primo dashboard of analytics and put that in our statistics dashboards folder with the iPads one. Um, so because I think it's probably a vastly underutilized area of analytics because it's tough to understand the, yeah, it's a
And really
totally
getting
different set
anything
of data.
useful, like, oh,
Yeah.
100 million people search for cats. Like that doesn't really help me make decisions about how to configure or operate the system or maintain the systems.
Yeah. Well, and I'm always fascinated to compare counter report usage to link resolver data because I'm like, how how is the usage in this database as recorded? But the other piece of that, and one of these days I'll share out, like, so I used to keep a giant spreadsheet of my electronic resources, and it the ID number was based on the ID number of the asset in LibGuides. And so I would have the LibGuides click usage for that link or for that database if it was an A to Z database or if I only had it as a link asset. Um, and I would have the counter usage because then I could make up the difference between the LibGuides clicks and the counter usage of like kind of what's being found through Primo without having to figure out analytics of Primo. Um, so, and Google Analytics, if even if you don't have LibGuides, um, can help depending on how you have it set up and how much access you have to the coding of your site. Um, so, yeah, like if IT does your site stuff, it can yeah, we'd have to talk with them, but yeah. Um, all right, it's 1:50. I could probably go on and Abby and I could probably come up with another topic, but Tim did just message me a question that he would like me to get back to him before 2, which is pretty infrequent ask from him. So yeah, tomorrow we'll talk analytics, which we can circle back on some of these topics of today. And yeah, please, if anybody wants kind of some personalized electronic resource management or Primo customization, like, yeah, yeah, do that Calendly or send me an email and be like, okay, here are the topics. Like, what kind of time do you think it's going to be? And we can kind of like plan out like a game plan. Because I like having meetings to fill my days because then it's like wandering the halls in a real library and getting to talk to coworkers. Uh, so, and speaking of talking to real coworkers, if you want to raise your hand, is anyone going to ACRL next Friday, 2 Fridays from now down in Longview? I don't think there is going to be a ton of in-person attendance, but Yeah, I figured Greg was going to be there because somehow he and I are the two people giving workshops, which I need to really work on. Um, so, um, yeah, but if anyone's going or if anyone else on your team is going, let them know that I will be there. Linda and I might try and get some board games together. Um, so yeah, it'll be a good time. Oh,
Thanks for
okay.
everything, Carly. So good to see you.
Yeah,
Have
good to
fun,
see
you and Linda.
everybody.
Be really loud librarians.
Oh,
That was a
definitely.
fun game.